Today we review WWE 2K24, and the Podski starts now.
The Podski with John Baker. For over 1 year, the revolutionary force in audio entertainment.
Oh, yeah!
Brother,
Let me talk to you! Freak out, freak out!
I just had an out-of-body experience!
Insane in the membrane!
Brother!
Yeah! And I'm here for only one reason, and that's to take it to the limit, yeah!
Somebody stop the damn man!
I'm living on the edge.
Who is your daddy?
Hello and welcome to the Podski. I'm your host, Johnny Bake Show, and ringside with me is the Prince of Pie, the Doctor of Podskinomics, the Dr. JC, back on the show today. We are going to give you our thoughts and opinions, and we're going to show you some gameplay. We're going to do a full game review of WWE 2K24. So before we get started into that, make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe to the channel. We greatly appreciate all the new subscribers we got from the WrestleMania 20 show. So thank you for that. We got the WrestleMania 15 show coming up next week. So cool little dichotomy between, 20 from 15, where we're not completely out of the Attitude Era, and then we're in the Attitude Era with 15. So be on the lookout for that. Don't forget to check the socials at @the_Podski. We love to hear your thoughts on the game, so leave them in the comments below. But JC.
Yes, sir. Hello.
It is, 2 weeks now removed from the release of the game?
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on 2K24?
So, as we discussed when I first got on the Zoom today, I have a new lab assistant in the Podski family. Kayfabe Cat has joined the crew here, and every time I go to sit down and play video games, he decides it's time to mark out. And what that entails is running around and getting into every goddamn thing that I don't want him to get into. Because I am a shoot professor, that's not just a moniker, I have only a little bit of free time, and then I come home and I have to deal with this little jobber in the evening running around. So I say all of this to say, A, welcome to the family, Kayfabe Cat, and also that anytime I try to play video games, he decides it is now run around and act like a jackass. Which apparently is also what he's doing during podcast time, because I swear to God, he just did a yabba dabba do and ran in place 4 times before his feet got. Yeah, I'm talking about you. The long and the short there, I haven't had as much time as I would have liked to play. But I've done enough. I've gotten into the modes that I really care about before we get into the MyGM that we'll have and doing a season this year. I haven't gone into that yet. I wanted to come in fresh, keep a fresh slate for the ass whooping that I'm going to hand you again. I don't need to read any strategy guides or anything like some people. I just go in and fucking work it like hell.
Hey now. So yes, this is a good time to bring up. We did do MyGM last year. JC and I did that. It is on the archives. It is called Hot Shots Wrestling, so you can go check that out. It is on a playlist on YouTube. It's in podcast, but we prefer everyone to go check it out on YouTube. That's the best way to watch it. You can see JC and I play together as we booked against each other. And yes, I did lose. And JC whipped that ass. And I tried to get cutesy instead of just straight up just trying to whip that ass. I tried to out-strategic him, and I strategicked myself out of that. So I have some hot takes on GM that we're going to come up with later.
Yeah. But to answer your question, after about 5 minutes of me shooting on my cat, I have enjoyed the bit that I've had time to play, and we'll get into the couple things that I've had a little bit of grumpiness about. But generally speaking, I've enjoyed it. It was everything that was good about last year, but they've added a little bit more. So yeah, I thought it was good. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I'd say my initial thoughts are pretty positive. They have continued to build on the engine. So if you like 22 and 23, you're most certainly going to like 24. I think that they've done a great job across the board with the things that yes, I wish there were things that were better about it, but this is the apex of wrestling games. Like, is it what exactly everything that we want? No, but you're not going to find anything better. And this kind of feels like, yes, it's a step up from 23, but this really feels like we're kind of like in that run in PS2 where the SmackDown series, like it feels like we're in the run of that games and we're building towards a Here Comes the Pain. Like it feels like we're kind of at like a shut your mouth right now. Like we're getting really close to something really, really good. I that's where I feel like we're at with the series. I really, really like. I'm not gonna say like that it's bad or anything, but there are different ways. There are different ways to buy this game. So there's three different versions. So personally, myself, I just want to say up front, like I'm not being paid for this. Like this is all JC and I's shoot money that we paid on these. We're not shills for corporate sponsors yet.
Yeah, but if they want to be,
But if they want to, we will.
please. And for me, like, if I was gonna do something else, like, I wanted the Cody Rhodes cover because so when next year comes out, whatever, I can put that copy of the game and the case in my Cody Rhodes collection of stuff, so it can actually sit in my display case. It'll look great. I might have thought about doing the deluxe just to have the DLC stuff, and we can talk about that when we get into the creation stuff.
Yeah.
Because I don't have it, so I can't have all of those of what
Right.
people make in the community. So that might be something I go into and just get the season pass later.
Yeah.
So I can have that stuff and some of the other. Like you play this game more than I do. I enjoy it. I play it. I'll usually do MyGM with you, which I'm looking forward to, and I'll usually do like a MyRise to go through that, and maybe the universe if I'm feeling froggy. So not everything that all of those unlock really appeals to me, so that's why I usually just buy the base game, and then I'm like, okay, get it later.
Right.
But I did do that pre-order to get Dashing Cody, Dusty, Superstar Billy Graham, and then the MyFaction card. Shout out to whoever decided to make Pharaoh a manager.
Yes, that's a great.
You absolutely know me, and thank you so much.
Yes.
So that is a non-jobber animal.
So we already talked about like if you like 22 and you like 23, you're gonna like 24. So what makes 24 stand out from 23? So things of note that are new. We got some new match types. We got casket match, we got ambulance match, we got special guest referee, and they also added gauntlet match. And personally for me, so casket match and ambulance match, they're basically the same style game. It's either you're going to throw your opponent into a casket and then it's like a button smashing mini game, or you're going to throw them into the ambulance and it's going to be a button smash mini game. They're the same game style basically. I played the casket match and that's probably the most fun that I've had. I did Undertaker and Kane in the WrestleMania 20 arena, which we'll get to the presentation here in a little bit, but that was some of the most fun I think I've had in a wrestling game in a long time. It was a ton of back and forth and like trying to get Kane in that casket and close that casket was legitimately hard. And I don't know if you noticed this or not, but it brings me to my next point. They've updated the AI. Have you noticed that? The normal AI now is much more difficult, not in a bad way. It's not like overbearing, but it makes the game challenging right out of the box.
If you are going in and just trying to play a fun game, for me, like I need to turn it down a little bit because like I just went in there and just wanted to have a nice fun time jobbing out Roman Reigns. No big deal, right? I had the WrestleMania 39 stage.
Yeah.
I had the appropriate people in the main event, and like I was doing okay with Cody for a little while, and then all of a sudden like two finishers later out of nowhere that I had no shot in hell at stopping after I whooped that ass the entire game. And I'm looking up at the lights and it's bro, like you don't even get a chance to counter. It's not fair. Like I was saving up my finishers to do a signature or a super finisher, which we'll talk about here in a minute. And it's like, all right, well, I guess I shouldn't have done that. And like, so if you try and do too much to like save up to that, there is a downside to it. And if you try to like go for stars in these, if you're not working on an appropriate level for yourself, so you need to do some self-reflection to figure out like what's the right thing for you, and so like you can enjoy that, get the match you want. Because like if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna book it right. I want a 5-star banger here, right?
Right.
And so I whooped that ass the entire time, and then all of a sudden, through doing nothing but getting his ass beat, he's got 3 finishers. 2.5 of them later, I'm like red all over, completely dead. And it's like, okay, well, this was not fun. It's like the same problem I have with Fortnite. Like, you do all this background work, you get supplies, you're building stuff, whatever, and then some 12-year-old comes and shoots you in the head one time from God knows where, and you've wasted 30 minutes of your time. But no, I did notice that it is a little bit more difficult, and that's not a bad thing. If I played more, and once I get used to it, it'll be fine. But just that is a heads up.
Yes. There are some new presentation updates too, like the blood. They've added blood and paint wear. So the blood, it will run like usually. So what we're used to sling games is that it just runs down the face and then that's all you see of it. Well, this runs like more down, like onto the torso. It will stay on the mat. It stays on the outside areas, like blood actually stains the areas now, which is more realistic. I know a lot of people have been asking for that for years, but the only way you can really get to that is you got to be beating the holy hell out of somebody just to, you got to keep beating on that area. Same way with the paint. So if you want paint wear, and I did a match with Sting and Vader, and brother, I can't wait to talk about some of the creations because I got a Surfer Sting, which JC and I have been talking about, and they're fantastic. We're going to shout you out here soon. But way that the paint wears, the longer the match goes and the more damage you take on your head, it just adds so much more realism to the game. It's so good. It's so good this year. They knocked it out of the park in that respect. Another thing, so they added more weapons. So you like the best weapon they've added by far is that Slim Jim. So they legitimately added a Slim Jim that you can pull from out of the ring and you can beat somebody with a Slim Jim.
Hilarious.
They also added that you can throw these weapons like projectiles. So you can legitimately launch a chair at somebody and it will hit them. Like the throwing mechanics in this are very, very well done. And I very much appreciate the time and the effort that they put into that because it's very well done. And when you get into a situation where you have a weapon and you just want to yeet that thing, you just want to yeet that across the ring, like you can yeet it right at them. And they're going to eat it, and it's so much fun. So I did mention that this adds into the presentation. So I noticed that they've really worked on the lighting this year, and it's very noticeable within these WrestleMania arenas. So like if you're we just did WrestleMania 20 here on the show. If you do the WrestleMania 20 showcase, it legitimately is lit. Like if you did a side by side, it's near 1-to-1. Visually, and it looks so good. The best arena in the game by far is WrestleMania 31 in the daytime. Oh, brother, what a chef's kiss that is. WrestleMania 31. Oh, it looks so good. That's the best arena in the game. There should be zero reasons for them to ever take that arena out of a game. It should be in there for life. And I know that next year when we probably go to 25, they'll take out half of these WrestleMania arenas. And I'm going to be pissed about it because they look so good that there's no reason that they should ever take them out.
And they have the assets already made, so like, why do you take it out? Just leave it. It's just you've already spent the money and the energy. Like, just keep it there.
Right. I will say that the WrestleMania 10 one's a little janky, but out of all the WrestleMania arenas, that's probably the worst one, and it's just minor complaints of like, it's the same thing when like the other thing that they added too is they added the ramp cam, so you can turn the cam and your presentation is just like it was for Here Comes the Pain and Just Bring It and all those. That has added a huge thing. But my complaint with the WrestleMania 20 arena is that it's the same thing both ways. So if you're looking at it on the hard cam, it's just got a barricade in the front at ringside. But if you turn it, it's the same exact thing, just a longer entrance. And like that entrance is so short. Like I wish they would have done that a little bit more justice and a little bit better. Because they literally did it in WrestleMania 20 arena. Like, it looks great. I don't know why they didn't follow through with it. That's my soapbox on arenas. We have actual reps We have little baby Nate. We have all of the refs that you see on television on a week-to-week basis. They are all in there, which is a huge, big thumbs up the 2K team, because this is something that has severely been needed and wanted by the community.
Absolutely. It's been, and I don't know why that was such a Vinceism
I don't
and
know.
Vince thing. It's so stupid. They are, if we're being real, they are part of the performance.
Right.
They are the third person in the ring. They are communication between the back and there. They serve many, many roles in the thing. They perform the biggest action in the match, which is counting 1, 2, 3, or the submission. Like,
Yeah.
they're real people. He just didn't want to pay a handful of more people a small amount of money. Like, it never made any sense. And I'm glad that under the new regime it has.
Yes. So JC mentioned super finishers. So not everybody got a super finisher. So when you store 3 finishers in a match, you'll see like these lightning bolts on the screen, and then you get the option to do a super finisher. So like Seth Rollins will be up on the top rope and he will do a curb stomp from the top rope onto his opponent. Cody Rhodes will do the 3 crossroads in a row. Like that's a new thing that they've added this year. I really like it. It does add, it gives you something to build towards in your match if you want a big finale ending.
Yeah, and that's one thing too, that like if you were playing and you were relatively good at the game and you stored those finishers, when you got to 3, it was like, okay, I guess I use these individually, and it's like 1, okay, and then I got to pick them up and do another. So having that thing to build towards and then way to use them all at once, that's super impactful.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very intelligent.
Yes. It was a great call by the 2K team to add that in. So like I said, not everybody has these super finishers, but the ones that do, they've done a very good job with them. Like Triple H's is a pedigree off the top rope.
Oh,
It looks insane. But the last thing that they added to here that I wanted to note is that they do the striking mini game. And I don't know if that's actually what it's called, but that's what I'm going to call it, because you initiate a strike in the game. You start getting like, it turns into a mini game, and it turns into like a chop fest or a striking fest. And that's added a lot, because you see those at least once or twice every single match that you watch today. So that added another, the way that you play it with the, building the circle and then letting it go. And it's really well done. I really have enjoyed that a lot. That's added a lot for me too. And it's probably the most fun that you can have like in the match. It's the match within the match.
Yeah. And I thought that when you learn about it and you do it the first time, you're like, oh, this is cool. And it didn't really lose the fun of it for me while doing it.
Right.
And doing it multiple times. Like, you're like, oh crap, I gotta hit the green spot. I gotta release at the right time, or I gotta keep doing this so I can get enough of a gold spot that's big enough
to finish.
For when we're done, they're stunned, and then you can do other stuff off of that. So it's a good mechanic in that it doesn't get boring, and the stakes of it are pretty good.
Yes.
So yeah, I actually think they did a good job on that, and it's well worth your time doing. So yeah, I thought that was a good one, because mini games can get repetitive. Like there's a ton of mini games in this game, or like button mashes, I should say, or those kind of things.
Yeah, the button mashing gets old, but I do like the switch up with the mini game, because it's not like anything else that you do in the game. So to your point, it is very well received, I believe, as well.
And it does give that nice back and forth feel.
Like
just the way they time it and the feel of it in the game.
Yeah.
It really does honor what they're trying to do as far as replicating something, and you get that rhythm of, oh, yeah, boo. So they really did a good job in that regard.
Get into the modes here. So I'm going to start with showcase mode. So the showcase mode this year, they did it the same. This is the same thing that they did from WWE 2K14. And they did the 30 years of WrestleMania in that one. This year they did the 40. Now, unlike what they did in 2K14, where they gave you a match for every single WrestleMania, they only take you through 21 matches of the previous 39 WrestleManias. So I understand the licensing. I understand that, there's things that are happening that they can't use these certain characters or people. They can't use them. And I understand.
Brock, Vince. Apparently Gino too. Why can't they show Gino Okerlund? They just made an action figure of him.
Maybe he doesn't have a video game deal, a BS.
Like, damn, I'm sure Gene did some stuff that we don't want to know about, but like, god damn, it hasn't come to light. Let's see him, and I need a hard fuck it
Yeah.
in there. Somebody show me that clip where the sign falls down. If you want a WrestleMania moment, it wasn't at Mania, but you want a WrestleMania moment right there.
Yeah, so that's one real big drawback is that so when you do a match, so it's narrated by Corey Graves and they show you actual footage of the match, and then it just like fades into the game where the gameplay is exactly the same thing from the match, and then it allows you to play moments of the match. It goes in and out. My thoughts are on this is that it turned into a slog at times. It felt like there was too many cutscenes. The cutscenes that you did play, they're so long. Like that WrestleMania 6 one, and then the Firefly Funhouse one that you do, you're waiting like 5 to 8 minutes of a cutscene before you're playing again. Like that's just way too long.
Yeah, I didn't get as far as you did into them. But even that, I was starting to feel the slog of it. That like
you can't play
especially like
normal mode either. You got to play it on easy.
Yeah, and like, well, that's the problem I need to fix because I haven't changed the setting on it. So
Yeah,
like,
just turn it on
this
easy.
adds to it. I would lose, and like then I'd have to go back, do the same objectives, and luckily once you do it once, you can skip
Mhm.
the video, so it's not as bad per se. But like, I don't know, especially early, like the amount that I did, and I know that they were big stars at the time, but
Mhm.
it's like there's a lot of Hogan, and even worse, a lot of Warrior.
Early on.
And like, yeah, and I'm like, can I just like even if they jumped around a little bit, like I know they were trying to go chronologically,
Mhm.
and that's fair, I understand that, but like if you could find a way to tie them, like if you would have done, I don't know, Hogan earlier and then Hogan later, like X17 Hogan
Yeah.
or X7 Hogan and Rock. Like do
I'm
that early one, then that later one, and then go to a Macho Man, and then go to a Hogan and Warrior, or like just break it up a little bit more. I think it wouldn't have been as bad, but I understand why one might do it chronologically.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of big misses in here because like they don't have all the WrestleMania. So like, yeah, it does get a little repetitive because it is a lot of Hogan up front, which is to be expected, and I
Right.
did expect that. But like when you go to like they didn't do the Rock and Hogan at 18, like they just wiped 18 off the map, and like they didn't do. There's no Triple H in here, and like we all know that like Triple H has had all of these WrestleMania moments. Like they couldn't slap one in there at some point. Like I mean, I'm shilling here for H because I am a mark, but like him and Rock felt like big misses. Like we didn't have them. Like they didn't even do. They could have done. They could have. I just felt like they could have done some more stuff, and they just didn't. Like no McFoley. Like there's not a lot of like they had these characters in the game. I don't understand why they didn't use them to the fullest.
And for the amount of Warrior that they had, they could have at least had the match where Warrior jobbed him out.
They could have.
I mean, come on. If you're not gonna have him and you want to lionize Warrior,
Put him
come
in
on.
13, brother. I think I was 13.
Right.
But yeah,
But it's like it's right there. Like, come on. Anyway,
there was a lot of stuff that was right there, and I understand about it. But this one, I mean, it is fun. It is. I don't want to discourage people from playing it. You have to play it on easy though to get to if you want to be able to unlock all of the objectives. And a new thing with the showcase is that like when you played it in previous versions in 22 and 23, you couldn't move on until you did the objective. But if you just walked in there and hit somebody with a stunner, you could end the match right there, and now you wouldn't get all of the objectives, but you would get at least something for finishing the match.
Yeah. But that's the thing, that's the gimmick with it though, because there's so many unlockables inside of it for doing each of those objectives that tie into the story of the match and tie into those cutscenes.
Right.
That you want to do it to unlock those things, right? So like
to get the full experience.
I didn't even think about changing the difficulty on it. I was just pounding my head against the fucking wall, dealing with Ultimate Warrior a bunch of times, and I was getting frustrated. And
yes,
so
it will change your life when you turn it from normal to easy for the showcase.
Less up.
We can get into the roster now. This is really impressive for a console game. The amount of wrestlers that they have. This is by far the most wrestlers we've ever seen in a game. There's over 200 playable characters, Obviously, you're going to get more as the DLC rolls out, but currently, as it stands at the launch, you got 75 legends, you got 49 Raw superstars, 44 SmackDown superstars, 43 NXT superstars, and you got 8 managers to start. Like, if you can't find somebody to wrestle with in there, I don't know what to tell you, brother. You can move on to the creation suite because we'll talk about that next. But this roster is very, very impressive, despite not having some heavy hitters that are licensed.
So no, I was very impressed with that as well, as many people as you want, and then again, if you can't find who you're looking for, just go into the creation suite. There really is something for everybody as far as the wrestlers you want and the dream matches you can have with that, and that's just stock before you.
We'll take you right into the creation suite now, because that's where JC and I primarily live, is just looking for what the great work that all of the creators do.
Boy, the Photoshop wizardry, I gotta tell you, they are the folks out there, they're doing the Lord's work.
Yeah, if you're following along here on YouTube, you're going to see some of the creators that we love. And, obviously, What's the Status? He's out there doing the hard work behind the scenes, finding out stuff in the hidden files. Game Vault, Halloween, Rebel Calls did all of those Sting. Like, so the Sting that you saw earlier, that's him. Like, he has a Sting pack that is undeniably probably the best set of Stings you're probably going to find in the game. They're amazing. Diffract, he does good AEW work. Too Sweet, yeah, he'll do some Icons of the Ring stuff. That is him and 2K Up in Flames. They do a lot of Icons of the Ring, so they'll do, like, they had a Cornette and a Russo. They have some arenas in there as well. Judders, he'll put up some really, really good arenas. He takes his time. Kel's 1919, that's WCW project. Like, that's coming up. So if there's people that aren't in here, like, I'm telling you what, I love me some WCW project. It is so good every single year. Whitty Witterson, he does really good work as well. And Marty, like, we gotta mention Marty and Jenna in here, because Marty does amazing arenas, and so does Jenna or Xenia. I don't know which one it is. I'm sorry if I butchered your name, but just know that we love your arenas and never stop making them. I know that you've teased a lot over the years that you're going to stop, but please never stop.
Yeah, please, for the love of God, do not. We love you.
This is what keeps the game fresh, because if you get tired of playing WWE, you can always switch into something else. You could go do AEW, you could do ECW, you could do WCW with WCW Project. Like, this is an easy way to refresh the game for you, to make it not feel the same. And I love it. I can't wait for. I'm waiting on some WCW stuff, because I'm getting a little itchy for it. Itchy for some Ruthless Aggression and Attitude Era stuff. So, but I love Creation Suite. I can't make it myself. That's why I rely on these creators, because they do the hard work up front. And, hats off to all those creators that we highlighted.
All for the love of the game. They're not getting paid by anybody.
Sometimes
they're not. I mean, I guess if they have a Patreon and whatnot,
but still, like, they're putting in for the love of the game for sure.
Gotta appreciate the men and women of the people.
Yes. Okay, so here comes my hot take, and this is where I don't know if JC's gonna fall in line with what I'm thinking here or not, but for me, universe mode feels like a giant waste of time anymore. I'm still gonna play it eventually, but MyGM also feels extremely too close to what universe mode is, without it just giving us the full package. For me, I think that there is a way to meld them together and bring them together as one, and do something similar to what they've done with universe mode, where you can do classic universe mode or superstar mode. Like, I feel like they should meld these. They're too close alike to be different anymore. I know a lot of, like, you could provide the MyGM part where you can get in there and mix and match things, and you can really set things up and be the booker, or you could do the full hands-on approach and do non-administrative things in universe mode. Like, they should be molded together into one, I think. Like, if you want to choose the MyGM route, open up MyGM to exactly what universe mode is, but don't limit us to MyGM anymore. I feel like I don't know if they can't give us the full rollout of both, because they're still holding back for, current gen consoles. I don't know if that's a thing, but it feels like they're not doing anything with universe mode other than it's universe mode. Like it's just a dead mode almost anymore because everyone wants big changes to universe mode and they don't ever seem to really answer them. I feel like they should just do away with both and meld them into one, but offer the same things out of both, but just open up GM more. And I feel like it would accomplish what they're trying to accomplish. Instead of doing it in 2 game modes, they could do it in 1.
Yeah, and maybe that's the case. I mean, obviously we've played a good bit of MyGM mode.
And it is
over
fun.
the time, and we watch. Yeah. And I know that you can do a lot more with my universe mode, and I don't really get into it that much. I enjoy being able to play against someone with this kind of stuff, so that's why I like my GM mode more. But when I have gone in, like, it's really cool. Like, you can set your roster, you can change up the shows, like when they are, what they are, and you're kind of doing some of that, what you do in single person. So I do get it. But if you could, like, it would be really cool if you had all of those features, to your point, in MyGM. Like, where you can go in there and change your shows, what day they are, what's going on, like, some of that extra stuff that you don't see there. It would be cool to have that in the MyGM. Like, I remember, it might have been Madden, where when you had that online GM, and there was so much detail in like setting hot dog and ticket prices and changing that stuff. Like, man, if you give me like a full suite of that kind of stuff where you can really, really sink your teeth, I mean, that's good. That's good stuff. Now, my one fear with that would be they would put microtransactions.
And we'll get into
they're gonna want to
actions later.
Yeah. And because they're gonna want more money for stuff like that. Whether and the code is already there. They'd have to make it work, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of that stuff is already there. But they're gonna want to monetize it. And I know that they already have the MyFaction stuff, and that is what it is. And I don't really get into that. I'm not giving them any more money. So, like, it's kind of fun, and I do it with all the sports. It's kind of fun, but it's like, meh. But it would be cool to have that even more detailed level of control. And, like, maybe it's you give them those controls, give the players those controls when they set up.
Right.
Do you want a more standard one? Kind of like, do you want a more standard MyGM, or do you want the full McCoy, Blizzy prices?
Right.
Yeah. That kind of thing.
The reason that I brought it up was because, friend of the show, Fleck, the meatball sub guru, he asked me, like, should I buy this game? And I was like, I mean, I think you should, because I think it's better than what 23 is. And there's a lot of things that you don't get in 23 that like you're getting now, and that like you don't, because he said, well, what's the difference between MyGM and universe mode? And when I really sat down and thought about it, there isn't really much of a difference at all, other than universe mode, you get absolute full control of your show, like what day the show is, the titles, you could do full custom shows, you could do full custom titles, like you could do all of that stuff that you don't have the option to do in MyGM. It's a very watered down version of a universe mode. But in MyGM, you have the ability to do the administrative stuff. So like you can set your rosters with a salary. You can set price. Like you're not really setting prices of your show, but you have to pay out of like your bank of money to run these shows. So there is some administrative stuff there's none of that in universe mode. And I just feel that they're just too close anymore to not be the same thing. And maybe I'm ahead of the curve here and they're going to, shit all over this next year and I'm going to look like a genius or whatever. Hopefully that's the case. So we can come back here and clip this in. But for me, I feel like they're just too close to not be the same thing anymore.
Yeah. I mean, and it makes a lot of sense. Again, like if you give them the option for MyGM mode to have the more depth or to have the regular, I mean, I think that's a good way to go. But again, I'd be worried about that.
So for the monetization part, that brings us to MyFaction. Listen, we've been on here in the past. We've talked about this, that, this kind of quote unquote live service card based mode. It's ruined the Madden franchise. It's ruined the Madden franchise because it kept them from innovating. I don't want that to continue to happen. I don't want that to translate over to 2K because 2K, like they dip their toes in it with, I mean, they really push it a lot with NBA 2K, but that doesn't keep them from innovating, much like what Madden does. So I'm sure that there's a lot of 2K players on here that are probably going to clip this and be like, this guy's a moron, but I don't know. I don't, I like NBA a lot and I do play, I am an NBA 2K, player myself. Not very good. I will say I'm probably the worst 2K player on this planet. So they added things to MyFaction this year. So there's new faction wars. So instead, like you can choose the route of faction war that you want to go. So if you don't want to do a certain match, you can go a different route tree on that. And the new thing that they added on there too is the persona cards. So my only complaint, I think, with the persona cards part is that I just wish there was a legitimate tab or an icon. Maybe there is, and I'm just not seeing it because I'm an idiot, but I wish that there was just a thing that you could click on and you just had here's the list of persona cards. Here's the objectives. Click on it. Let's start now. Let's go. And the persona cards are alternate attires or alternate characters that are not unlocked. They're behind the MyFaction wall. And this is where a lot of frustration with the community and 2K comes because they hide these models behind MyFaction, like that Big Papa Pump from last year. I'm still pissed that we have not gotten that Big Papa Pump, and we'll never get it in 23 because they had Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner in MyFaction. People were playing with it and then deliberately content damaged it so that you could not download it. So people like what's the status could not go in there and pluck it out of the files and put it up for us to play. So shout out to Status for doing that, but oh my word, I'm still salty about it. And if there's not a world where we don't get a Scott Steiner this year, I will be super pissed about it. Like, I don't want to play with Steiner Brothers Scott Steiner. I want Big Papa Pump, damn it.
Yeah, like I need to cut some math from him.
How else am I going to solve math problems in universe mode?
Right. If I'm figuring out these hot dog prices and trying to, make an extra $12 on each head here, like I need chainmail to help my mental prowess. And I need to be sitting here doing some math. And I can't do that if I don't have Scott Steiner. So really, all they're doing is hurting the Common Core. Honestly. Like this is about the education of people. It does suck when they do stuff like that, like you said, where they intentionally content damaged it so you couldn't have that model, that player. So that does suck unless you knew about the other ways. And for me, I've never really gotten into these. Like the closest I've gotten into them is in the NHL games. And that's because you could earn some coins throughout the game. And I think they did a better job of giving you that in-game currency in the other stuff in the game than other games like this one do. And then you had the open market where you could get the certain cards if you had enough of their in-game currency. And I know that they have that. So it's just never been something I've super gotten into, again, because I know what it's based on. They're trying to siphon more money off of you. And I philosophically don't like that.
Agreed.
So I've just never been able to get into it, and I probably never will. Because all the fun stuff you can do in those, you can do in another mode. If I'm trying to manage, okay, you can't necessarily manage contracts, but you are kind of managing contracts in MyGM. You're building a roster. You're competing. You're doing all these. So it's like, okay, what are you really giving me that's different besides an opportunity to play on the science of addiction and take people's money? You're not really doing anything different. So, nah, I'm not going to reward bad behavior.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating because, I don't want to have to, what's really frustrating, too, is that the developers have already said that, MyFaction and the rest of the game, they're two different studios. So, hello, how are they two different studios? I understand that the one's a live service type deal, and the other is solid state gameplay, but how are you not talking to each other? I know that last year, and I think this is what I'm really waiting on this, and I'm waiting for someone to upload it. Status. I'm waiting for him to find in the hidden files the My Time Triple H. I know that last year that was one of the first things he put up, And that was a MyFaction model that you could only get in MyFaction. If it wouldn't been for status putting it up, like we'd never have that Triple H in-game model. And it's a phenomenal model. It has the My Time music. Like you can't get the My Time music or that Titantron. You can't get that in the base game. It's all behind the MyFaction wall. And we could go at long form of this forever. And it's just, I understand. I feel like I want to give MyFaction a chance. I'm not saying I'm going to go out there and, I'm not going to spend any extra money on this. I'm definitely not doing that, but I feel like I want to give it I feel like it's earned a shot. I don't know if this is the year for me to do it or not, but I feel like I should want to dip my toes into this and give it a shot. Depending on what the persona cards are. Like if they say like, hey, like if you got to go out and grind this, you got to do 14 matches and you got to do it to get this big Papa Pump, and that's the only way you can get it, then I'll do it. But I don't know. I do like that they're giving you the opportunity to grind it out and play it if you want to.
No, I get it. I know a lot of people like these modes. I can't get by the scummy business practice, and knowing what we know about the science of addiction and that they are specifically targeting people like that. And it's the same thing with any other kind of game.
Right.
I understand that. I don't engage with that either. And I think it's terrible when people are playing on those specific things. So I just don't engage with it. And if you want to do it, great, enjoy. I choose not to support scummy business practice like that. But the rest of the game is great.
Yeah.
And it's an expectation, and it's a cultural thing now where we allow that. It's not only in this game, lots of mobile games do it. Lots of other big console franchise games do it too. It is a part of what we allow and call culturally acceptable. So it's not a huge deal. It's just something.
We can talk about the MyRise stuff. I didn't get into the MyRise stuff because I like to wait a little bit because I like to do these things in order. So I could not provide good enough information on the MyRise. The MyRise, so it's different than years. It's a little bit different than years past. So this year, I believe it's Undisputed. I can't think of what the women's section is.
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing that bothers me. It's not the fact that there is an individual, like I wish they had the gender option for both, because they do it based on a storyline, right? So like the women's one, you start out as an indie darling at a darling indie promotion, and you work your way into an NXT contract and then up to the main roster, etc. And then the other one, you are already in the system, you are in a tournament. Roman vacated the title, he's out of opponents, and so you're in that tournament. You go from there.
I do like that. I wish that there weren't gender specific.
Right. Give both to both. That's what I'm looking for.
Right. Like I would want to do the women's one, but if I wanted to do it as a male or vice versa, like what if I wanted to be a women's wrestler and go through it, but I did the Undisputed one? Like I do wish that there was an option to do that.
Right. And I get it with the one they have designated for men is because it's specifically like the basis of it is Roman has dropped his title. Well, I mean, it could be, you could have just made it as the champion. You could have said, okay, it's either the heavyweight title holder, the undisputed champion of either gender.
Right.
And you could have done it that way and said that they had to vacate the title or they chose to vacate the title. And again, I understand they're doing something kind of story specific for the men because of Roman and his career and what's going on, and it plays off the finish the story thing, but in a different way. So I get it. But they did it last year too, and I kind of wished it would have been the other way, where you could do both for both. It is what it is. I'll go back in and play as a female character. I don't really care. But it would have been cool to do.
I totally agree with you on that front. But I think we covered everything in the game. So what are your thoughts? Where would you rank this game? Where do you put it on the scale 1 through 10 here? Is it a Here Comes the Pain or a SmackDown versus Raw height, or you keeping it down around Just Bring It?
You know, I would give it about a 9 out of 10, honestly. It's very good. The things that I take qualms with are very minimal. Not that big a deal as far as stuff that I don't love. There are little things that are set for improvement, so I don't want to give it a 10 out of 10 because I don't think it's a 10 out of 10, and we've outlined most of them. But overall, they made small incremental improvements from last year, so I do think it's better than last year. And I think they are building to a crescendo of making a really great modern, like, super high fidelity kind of thing. So I really think it's a great game from what I've gotten to play and from what I've seen and reviewed and talked to you about and seen the different things. So I really do put it up there as one of the one of the great ones, especially in terms of the modern context. It's hard to compare it to something from previous generations because they were doing different things, they were working with different things. It feels like there's so much you can do in this game.
I agree.
And that's before you even get to all the community stuff, as we've talked about before. So, yeah, really highly rated. And Cody's on the cover, so 12 stars in the Tokyo Dome, brother. So,
yeah, I agree. I want to give it. I want to give it a 8.8 because I don't want to give it too high, but I want to keep it within reason because I feel like last year's game was a solid 8.5, and I feel like they notched it up a couple more steps this year. And the things that you might not notice the things because they're not big, bold, and flashy, but the little minute details that they've added, like the paint and the blood and the visual updates and the updated AI, those are things that really add the game. And if there's one big thing that I want from them next year is that I want them to spend a ton of time on fixing the crowd. We've had the same crowd model for the last 10, 15 years.
forever.
We need to spend some time on the crowd. Like we need to give some visual fidelity updates to the crowd, and they need to be more responsive. The crowd noise is there. Like the sounds that you hear in the arena, they're all on point. The crowd just looks so out of place because of how great the models look, how great the rings look, and then the stage, like the whole presentation is great. And then you look around the fans and it's just the same old Joe Schmoes holding up a sign. Now, I will say the one nice thing that they did add was create your own sign. And I really think that that's going to add some, a little bit of funness to the game that you can add. I really feel that if they really want to amp it up to the next level next year visually, we gotta get new crowds.
Yeah. And that's another thing that we didn't talk about, but they did some really, really great modeling of the characters of like the really top guys and top girls.
Yes.
But then the other folks didn't get the same treatment yet. So like your Cody Rhodes, your Romans, your Asukas, your Biancas, your Rheas, like they all got really polished models.
I wish they would have updated Cody's entrance, but yes.
Yeah. And the one thing that did bother me a little bit is the WrestleMania 39. They didn't build it like it's in a stadium. They built it like it's an arena. So when you play that arena, it's the entrance stage and everything. But then when the camera pans around to see the rest of the crowd, it's like you're in a big arena instead of a stadium.
Yeah, I know. There's a little complaints that we got.
Little things.
I wish I could edit. Like you can edit entrances. I wish I could edit Cody's entrance, but there's no way to edit it. I've tried a bunch of times, and there's no way to edit it. So they still got box on Cody's entrance.
But overall, really great game. We'll continue to enjoy it for a calendar year and then shell out for next year's edition.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. That is the truth. So what do you think about WWE 2K24? You can let it in the comments below or hit us up on Twitter and or Instagram at @the_podski. Be on the lookout for more 2K24 content as we will most likely be doing the Hot Shots Wrestling Alliance again this year. I believe we're going to make that a YouTube exclusive. So it won't be in the podcast format anymore, but we're going to try to roll this out as we play, keep it to the tube. So if you want to watch that, you can subscribe down below. Or if you want to do anything else we got going here on the Podski, we got the WrestleMania 15 show coming up next week. We got great feedback on the WrestleMania 20 and the Road to 20 show. So we really appreciate everybody that watched that and has recently subscribed. So keep it locked in here. We got WrestleMania 40 coming up that JC and I will be at, as well as Mongoose. So, and everybody else that's showing up here on the show. Looking forward to that. And we thank you for listening, and we will see you next time on the Podski.